Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi there. I'm Hannah Rubenstall, the crafter here at Fanciful Spaces.
And I'm Lucy here.
This is my little one. She does a lot of help for me. She helps critique some of the pieces that I work on and gives me suggestions and ideas. And she was really monumentally valuable in this this painting that we're going to talk about today. Unlike some of the other videos that I've released, this is not a vlog. I'm not really talking about my emotions very much. This is more a process video. So I hope that you enjoy and that I inspire you. Never stop creating. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Hi, my name's Hannah Rubenstall. I am the crafter here at Fanciful Spaces, and thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about some of the highlights of my creating this project that I'm calling Crawling Out of the Mud. To start with, this is a canvas wrapped panel from a big box retail store. It's large. It's like 16 inches by 40 inches. So a little over an inch, or excuse me, a little over a foot by 3 feet. So unfortunately, because of my camera setup, you couldn't see all of the canvas. You're only seeing a portion of it. So I tried to, I just had to, I could only video a certain amount. So I'm really, really sorry about that. Also, you might have noticed there was some random text on this canvas. I had previously started a project and failed miserably at it, not even a quarter of the way through, and gave up. And I was able to paint over some of the canvas with some white gesso. I actually covered the entire thing with white gesso or plain white, inexpensive acrylic paint just to help tap those letters down, knowing that in theory they were going to be disguised in the paint, and sure enough, that's what happened. So once my panel was all white, I started applying some Ranger Dylusions acrylic paints, very, very watery down. I'm using Calypso Teal and crushed grape at the moment, and then I just started with some cherry pie. I'm going for a nebula type effect, and the really great thing is that rubbing alcohol will repel water. And so if you've got water mixed in with pigment and you're repelling it, you get these really great organic holes or spots that I wanted to play with that does half of the work of creating a magical panel for you without any effort, basically. So that's what I did here. I'm just, applying general areas. It goes through a very long, ugly phase, and this is one of them. Just kind of have to trust the process and know that you're going to be covering over so much of the stuff with many, many layers, and you have a lot of chances to fix it. So there you just saw me splatter on some more alcohol. Found this cute little egg cup in the dollar spot at Target. Boy, I only bought one. I wish I had bought two because I don't want to get paint on this one. It's so pretty. So I put some alcohol in it so that this way I could splatter it on with my paintbrush. Talking about paintbrushes, here I am going with Pure Sunshine, and then I'll do some lemon zest paint. Talking about paintbrushes, most of the paintbrushes that several of the paintbrushes that I used in this project are from my theater days. It's the first time in years that I've pulled out these brushes. Pretty sure they're Roscoe liners in 1 inch and 2 inch sizes. One's a Roscoe liner, one's a Scenic Finch. The Roscoe liner is in 1 inch and the Finch is in 2 inches. And then just some variety of other paintbrushes that work for me. You don't have to use giant paintbrushes. You could totally get this effect if you had a rag, any sort of rag, or even a paper towel if you were careful enough. Viva makes a really handy paper towel. You could totally get a very similar effect. You do want the paintbrush to splatter though. So, but that's not necessarily having to be a scenic art brush. You could just use any paintbrush that you have that makes really pretty splatters for you. So yeah, I was really, really excited to bring out these paintbrushes, and it was helping to bring back my theater days when I would paint out in the sun. My paint would be on the end, or my paintbrush would be on the end of a bamboo pole, and I'd be painting away, and it was just really made me happy. And that's where I learned about alcohol in the first place. We use this technique to create a lot of marble effects, which I'll probably be doing some more of in the future. Now I'm taking the Black Dilutions. It's black marble paint. It's the only black acrylic paint that I have. I have no idea how that is, but it's a really good consistency, and it made me happy. This is where it got super duper scary, because I was afraid of going too dark, but I was also afraid of going too light. And it was just one of those, you have to trust the process. You have to trust that you're going to be fixing this with a multitude of layers. It was really scary here. But you can see how that alcohol and that water just pair so perfectly with this contrast, with the dark color. They're a heck of a lot of fun. So that's this step. I'm looking. I brought all of my equipment, all of my tools, so that I could talk about them. And I realized that I forgot. The next step is mixing the same black paint with some Prima Marketing Raven Black acrylic paints. This has got a lot of shimmer and shine to it. And then also some Ink on 3. They have this shimmer additive that's much like a watercolor. And so I mixed the three of those products together in order to get a super shimmer and sparkle going on, and to help increase the darkness because it's a night sky. I'm sorry I don't know what that Ink on 3 product is. I'll put it in the blog post for you. But the combination of the two I had used, actually of the 3, I had used in a previous piece that I hope to be sharing soon. And that is so magnificently sparkly. It's really, really incredible. In between the color step and the first black layer, I had coated my entire canvas with some Liquitex clear gel, a shinier one. Again, don't have it with me. What is wrong with me today? And this just helped add a different layer. It helped keep everything separated. If any pigment was going to be pushed around that hadn't dried, I'd be able to keep it separated from the other layers, and it just helps add so many more layers of depth. Again, I use this product a lot in the other space project that I did, and you can see all of the different layers on that piece. It is really, really incredible. And then once that was done, my daughter and my husband, they both like to help me, give me tips of things to do, critiques. And my daughter's critique was that it wasn't dark enough. It doesn't look like space. We also had to teach her what a nebula looked like, but it still wasn't dark enough for her. So I took that same black paint and I sort of vignetted around the corners and the edges slightly. And then to help make everything blend in, I sprayed some Lindy's sprays over it. I used Sweet Violet Purple Teal. It's got purple and teal in it, and it's amazing. Bougainvillea Fuchsia. Tibetan Poppy Teal, which is probably my favorite color because there's blue and there's like gold, and it's so incredible. And then Hydrangea Blue, which was a happy accident. Did not think it sprayed out so much brighter blue than I wanted, and then I ended up really liking it, and I intentionally leave a lot of it in the finished piece. So I just sort of sprayed that over, and that's where you are here. I also used some white paint to make some dots and some splatter, and it sat like that for a little while until I figured out what I was going to do. And then I thought, I'm going to put an astronaut or a satellite or a telescope in there. And I wanted to do more mixed media-y. I actually wanted to jelly print on text, on books. And so I went through some available books that we had, and there's this book by H.A. Rey called Find the Constellations. It was actually in my daughter's library. She doesn't care for the book at all. and I fell in love with it. It talks about what a light year is. It talks about the mythology of the constellations. It tells you what time of night you want to go out to see anything in particular. And I thought if I was using that as a satellite, that would be really like super meaningful. You know, it would add another layer of meaning to this work. So I cut it out. I had freehand sketched a satellite, or a telescope rather, and then I cut it out and made patterns of it, which I then saved because those patterns are going to be a mask later on. And I glued my book pages using some matte gel. I intentionally wanted matte because I didn't want any sheen that would prevent the next layers from settling into the work. I was also very, very careful to choose the direction of text. I wanted the direction of text to flow with, add architectural interest to my satellite. So that is why those text choices were intentional. Once it was glued down, I used some Liquitex clear gesso just so that I could then have a watercolor friendly surface. And I didn't watercolor, I used acrylic paints. Primarily, I used the Dylusions Black Marble acrylic paint and Liquitex Basics Titanium White. I generally don't spend a lot of money on my white paints. I just buy the most inexpensive craft paint that I can, and I save my money for the more spectacular sections. So while I was painting this, I had no idea where the light source was going to be. I kept feeling like I might know where it was going to go, and then realized I was not painting it appropriately. And I, for a while, just sort of decided to give up on trying to find a light source. I was more of wanting to get it done. You see here that there's buckles in the project. You can still see those buckles a little bit in the final piece. I'm looking at it now. It's not too bad. It happened because of how I adhered my paper. I'm a little bit annoyed by it, so don't do like me. Coat one whole side and then just lay it flat on the canvas. It provides a much smoother surface. So I painted it with shadows and highlights, not having any clue where the actual shadows or highlights were going to be. And that's when I took out my super favorite Faber-Castell gelatos. And some of these gelatos I used in the text, which was die cut out of some cut cardstocks, Curious Metallics paper. I love the shimmer in this paper. It's 80-pound paper, so it's fairly thick. It has got a lovely shimmer to it. I die cut my sentiment out of it, and then I glued it down using some Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. And then I needed those letters to have some sort of depth, to have something going on, and I used my Faber-Castell gelatos for that. I carried over some of those gelatos to the satellite dish, and that's where I sort of fixed the shadows and the highlights a little bit better. I was still going for an artistic, painterly sort of look, so I'm cool with where it's at. And then my husband suggested that my satellite was fading into the black. Here I am in the video hiding where that matte medium was in that clear gesso. It had caused that ugly line around my satellite. So again, another layer, helping my daughter with pushing this, pushing it a little bit blacker. I'm going back in with that Dylusions Black Marble and kind of creating a faded sort of look. And then the cream of the crop here, the most perfect, was I took that Lindy's Starburst Sprays Hydrangea Blue and sprayed it over, and it just tied it all together, and it looked so pretty. That's when I used my my pattern as a mask when I sprayed over my my telescope. I didn't want those splatters everywhere, so that's why I saved that mask. My husband thought that the satellite or the telescope was fading into the background too much. So I took a Uni Posca white paint pen, and it clogged and I couldn't figure out what was going on, but it dripped massive amounts of white pigment onto a palette that I was using. So I actually took a paintbrush and I applied it via paintbrush. And the really beautiful thing was it picked up some of that hydrangea blue and it added color to that white paint. If you're wondering, the gelatos that I used were Blue Moon. Let's see, this one is Black Hole, Silver Ice, and Nebula. These are in their iridescent ranges. I loved them. To finish the project off, we wanted a little bit of glow and sparkle to it. So I used some Studio Katia crystals. So they kind of look like little stars. I super love it. I hope you enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for watching and never stop creating.